The notification lights up my phone before I even finish my coffee. Breaking news: Chicago-based startup acquired for $9.2 million. I don't tap it right away. Outside my office window, the city hums the way it always does. Distant sirens, morning traffic, the low, steady rhythm of people chasing somewhere they believe they belong. The silk sleeve of my blouse brushes my wrist as I set the phone down, my hand surprisingly calm. No one looking at me would guess how long this moment took to arrive. The office smells faintly of roasted espresso and polished wood. There's a framed photo on my desk I keep turned slightly inward, a reminder of who I was before success learned my name. Before headlines ever did. My phone buzzes again. This time, it's a name I haven't seen light up my screen in years. Dad. I exhale slowly, noticing a tiny chip in my pale nail polish, something I meant to fix before the press call started. Funny how even on the biggest day of your life, the smallest details still pull at you. He doesn't know yet. As far as he's concerned, I'm still the daughter with the $15 an hour job. The one he laughed at over dinner. The one he told everyone just hadn't figured life out. Another vibration. A voicemail this time. I let it sit. Because before I answer him, before the world catches up, I let myself feel it. The quiet victory. The old ache. And the strange, steady power of knowing I survived what once tried to break me. The memory comes back in pieces first. The clink of silverware. The smell of roasted chicken drying out under heat lamps. My mother smoothing the tablecloth, like that could smooth everything else too. It was a Sunday dinner at my parents' house in suburban Ohio. Beige walls. Family photos frozen in better years. I remember sitting straight in my chair, hands folded in my lap, rehearsing my answers before anyone even asked the question. "So," my dad said, leaning back, beer in hand. "What are you doing these days, Liv?" I hesitated for half a second too long. "I'm working at a logistics firm downtown," I said. "Customer operations. $15 an hour, but..." He laughed. Not a chuckle. Not a smile. A laugh. 15, he repeated, loud enough for the whole table. "That's what I made in college. Guess some people peak early." The room went quiet in that way that hurts more than noise. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I felt heat crawl up my neck, my ears burning as if I'd been slapped. My uncle cleared his throat. My mom stared at her plate. No one said my name. Dad kept going. "I mean, Olivia's smart, sure," he said, waving his hand like he was being generous. "But ambition matters. You can't just drift through life and expect miracles." Drift. The word landed hard. I wanted to explain the nights I stayed late, the courses I was taking online, the ideas I carried around like fragile glass, afraid to say out loud because I didn't know how to protect them yet. Instead, my throat closed. I smiled, that tight, practiced smile women learn early, and nodded like he'd made a fair point. Under the table, my hands shook. I pressed my nails into my palms until the sting grounded me. After dinner, as I stood at the sink helping my mom dry dishes, my grandmother shuffled in quietly. She didn't look at me at first, just handed me a folded napkin. Inside was a small brass key. "I don't know what door it opens," she whispered, "but I know you'll find it. Don't let anyone decide how big your life gets." I held that key all the way home, fingers curled tight around it like a promise. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat on the edge of my bed and let the tears come. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. And somewhere between the crying and the silence, I made a decision. If they were going to doubt me anyway, I would stop explaining. I would build quietly. And one day, I would never have to justify my worth at a dinner table again. The first months after that dinner were rougher than I could have imagined. My $15 an hour job paid the bills, but the rent, the student loans, the lingering weight of my father's judgment, all of it made me feel trapped in a life that wasn't mine yet. I began spending nights after work in coffee shops, laptop open, sipping bitter lattes while the city hummed around me. I studied business blogs, devoured articles on e-commerce and logistics, and sketched out a plan that I didn't dare share with anyone. Not my friends. Not my parents. Not even the mentors I occasionally reached out to for guidance. It was during one of those nights that I met Claire Donovan, a senior operations manager at a startup that specialized in sustainable packaging. I had emailed her under the guise of career advice, expecting polite dismissal. Instead, she responded with curiosity. She saw the spark I tried to hide. A week later, we were in a quiet meeting room, her voice steady, encouraging, but with an unmistakable edge. "You're smart, Olivia. Don't waste that. Build something of your own. I'll help you, but you have to do the work." And I did. The work meant hours that bled into mornings, learning software I'd never touched, negotiating contracts with people twice my age, swallowing pride every time I faltered. There were nights I cried into my pillow, convinced I was fooling myself. But with every small win, landing my first paying client, getting the first bulk order shipped without disaster, receiving that first check that actually made a dent in my savings, I felt a quiet fire building inside me. I became fluent in patience, in persistence, in silence. I kept my growth hidden from my family. They believed I was still working the same modest job downtown. My social media posts were carefully curated, vague, modest, and never hinting at the empire I was beginning to build behind closed doors. I learned how to handle doubts from strangers without letting them echo inside me. I learned that confidence wasn't loud, it was consistent. It wasn't flashy, it was dependable. And slowly, the small startup I'd launched from a borrowed corner of my apartment became something bigger. We hired our first employees, rented a small office, and began receiving orders from companies I had once only admired from afar. Every late night, every rejection, every small victory felt like stacking bricks in a fortress that no one, not even my father, could breach. There were moments of loneliness, yes, and moments when the old voice of doubt crept in, whispering that I might fail spectacularly and publicly. But I reminded myself of the brass key my grandmother had given me. It was more than a key, it was a promise to myself. And every time I held it, I remembered that the life I was building wasn't just for money or pride. It was for freedom, for respect, and for the quiet joy of proving to myself that I could. By the time the offer for acquisition came in, I had become someone who understood the power of patience, persistence, and subtlety. Someone who had taken the humiliation of that dinner table and transformed it into a trajectory that even I had once thought impossible. It was a crisp Saturday afternoon when they arrived. I had invited my parents and a few relatives to see the office, a casual excuse that was thinly veiled. My mother smiled nervously, glancing at her phone. My father carried that same half-smirk, half-skeptical look he always wore, like he was about to catch me in some embarrassing truth. The elevator doors opened, and they stepped into my world. Marble floors gleamed beneath polished shoes. Walls were lined with modern art, abstract pieces I'd collected during late-night trips to small galleries. In one corner stood a full-size glass display showcasing our first shipments, tiny boxes that had once meant everything to me. A soft hum of printers and distant conversations drifted from the open office space, where my employees worked quietly but efficiently. My father froze mid-step, his eyes scanning the room, the walls, the people. I noticed the faint twitch in his jaw. My mother's breath caught. No one spoke. I offered them a seat in the lounge area, cream leather, minimalist, intentionally calm. The table between us held a small, polished wooden box. Inside lay the brass key my grandmother had given me years ago, now framed and labeled. The key to what I could become. I sat across from them, hands folded in my lap. "I wanted you to see this," I said, voice steady. "I didn't want to tell you. I wanted you to experience it." Silence stretched. I let them take it in. Finally, I spoke again. I didn't stay at the $15 an hour job. I didn't stay because I needed approval or because I wanted to prove you wrong, though yes, that was part of it. I stayed because I had to build something of my own. Something I could be proud of without anyone's permission. Their eyes widened. My father's hand twitched at the armrest. I took a deep breath. I founded this company. I led it through every stage. And today, I let the pause linger just long enough for curiosity and tension to peak. Today, it was acquired for $9.2 million. The room went still. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. 9.2 million, he whispered, voice rough, shaky. Yes, I said. And I own the majority stake. All of it. He opened his mouth, closed it. Tried again. But why didn't you? I shook my head gently. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to do it without pressure. Without judgment. Without anyone doubting me along the way. The employees I'd asked to quietly stay in the background began filtering past the lounge area, casually and confidently, their presence amplifying the reality of what I'd built. Contracts, client portfolios, small awards lining the office. All tangible proof. My father's disbelief finally cracked into something else, a mix of awe, shame, and something almost like pride he didn't know how to claim. My mother's eyes shimmered with tears, silently apologetic, silently proud. I smiled, calm, deliberate, composed. This wasn't about revenge, I said. It was about showing myself what I'm capable of. The rest is just details. For the first time, I saw him truly look at me, not as the child he could dismiss, not as the daughter he mocked over dinner, but as the woman I had fought to become. And in that gaze, I felt the quiet satisfaction of every late night, every tear, every small victory that had led me here. The room felt different now. The air wasn't heavy with judgment or disbelief anymore. It was charged with possibility. I had the upper hand, not in a vengeful way, but in a way that mattered. I controlled the terms. I leaned back in my chair, observing them quietly. My father fidgeted, shifting weight from one foot to the other. My mother's hands clasped together tightly, eyes darting between him and me. I could feel their old assumptions cracking, and it was time to lay down the rules. Here's what I'm willing to do, I began, voice calm but firm. I can help you understand this world, business, financial independence, opportunities you've never considered. But it comes with conditions. They listened, wary but attentive. First, I said, locking eyes with my father, there's no more mockery. No sarcasm disguised as advice. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be built on respect. Period. He nodded, a little stiffly. Second, I continued, turning to both of them, you have to pursue something meaningful for yourselves. Dreams you've set aside, ambitions you've ignored. I won't fund laziness or excuses. I can guide, mentor, support, but only if there's real effort. My mother swallowed hard, eyes glistening. We want to, she murmured. Third, I said, my tone softening just a touch. We repair the past only by learning from it. No more letting old patterns dictate our future. You've seen what happens when words wound. We speak differently now. We act differently. We grow differently. There was silence for a moment, a weighty, reflective silence. My grandmother's brass key sat on the table between us, gleaming under the soft office lights. It had guided me, reminded me, pushed me forward. Now, it silently underscored what I expected from them. Growth, accountability, transformation. I care about you, I admitted quietly. But I won't bend to patterns that hurt me or anyone else. If you want a part of this life, my life, you need to earn it in ways that go beyond appearances. Beyond pride. Beyond excuses. My father's jaw tightened, then slowly relaxed. There was a nod, hesitant but real. My mother let out a shaky breath and reached for his hand. I'm serious, I said, standing and smoothing my blouse. These aren't just conditions. They're opportunities. For you, for me, for us. But I'm done compromising my life for the comfort of old habits. For the first time, I didn't feel any guilt. I didn't feel shame. I felt the quiet power of self-respect, of boundaries clearly drawn, of love expressed through firm, unwavering standards. And as they absorbed my words, I realized that this wasn't just about money or validation or even the acquisition. It was about shifting the dynamics of every relationship I had grown up with, showing them and reminding myself that growth was not negotiable, but connection still was, if it came with integrity. I could see the spark of comprehension flicker in their eyes. And for the first time, the idea of family no longer felt weighted by ridicule or doubt. It felt like something we could rebuild, on terms that honored everyone, starting with me. Weeks passed, and I watched subtle changes take shape. My father started volunteering at a local nonprofit, something he'd always dismissed as a waste of time. He seemed quieter now, more present, as if he'd finally realized that listening could be more powerful than judging. My mother took up her old passion for painting, filling her apartment with canvases she'd long abandoned. Both of them were tentative, awkward, fumbling through unfamiliar territory, but moving forward nonetheless. And I sat at my desk one evening, the city lights twinkling below, reflecting in the glass walls of the office I'd built. I let myself smile, soft and unguarded, thinking of that little brass key my grandmother had given me years ago. I held it in my hand again, now framed, a symbol of resilience and faith in myself. It reminded me that growth often starts in silence, fueled by belief in what's possible even when no one else sees it. I thought back to the dinner table, the $15 an hour job, the sting of laughter and dismissal. I had once felt so small, so inadequate, so powerless. Now, I realized how those moments had shaped me, not into bitterness, but into strength. Not into revenge, but into clarity. Every insult, every doubt had become a stepping stone toward the life I now led. I poured myself a cup of tea, letting the warmth seep into my hands and chest. The office was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant chatter of a few late-night employees. I allowed myself a moment of gratitude, for patience, for persistence, for every tear shed in secret, for the courage to keep going when the world seemed to have written me off. And I understood, fully, that the victory wasn't in the acquisition itself. It was in the journey, in the quiet triumph of becoming someone who couldn't be diminished by others' opinions, someone who could demand respect while offering compassion. I placed the framed key on my desk, a silent promise to myself, and a reminder that my worth had always been mine to define. Looking out over the skyline, I whispered, softly but with conviction, to the empty room. I am enough. I always have been. And now I'm unstoppable. That was the end of the chapter that began with mockery and doubt. From here on, the story was mine to write, bold, unapologetic, and filled with the quiet, unstoppable power of a woman who had learned to rise.